Today on Hearts of Heroes, a string of vicious tornadoes rips through central Tennessee.
It was probably just a matter of seconds when everything blew up.
Creating a 100-mile scar of destroyed homes and businesses.
All of a sudden, you come around a curve and you've got massive amounts of destruction along the roadway there.
And with hundreds of people trapped, it will take an army of first responders to rescue everyone that was under the wreckage.
Day or night, rain or shine, that's what heroes do, save the day.
In early March of 2020, a slew of twisters raced across central Tennessee in one of the worst tornado outbreaks in that state's history. For the folks that survived, losing everything but their lives, they now faced a daunting challenge: rebuilding. Known as the Hollywood of country music, Nashville is dreamland for aspiring singers and musicians that are hoping to make it big. But travel just 17 miles east and you'll find yourself in Mount Juliet, a quiet suburb far removed from the glitz and glamour of the music industry.
The community is really close-knit, and it's just really grown a lot, and it has that really small town feeling, but it's got everything else that goes with it, and it's just great people.
Well, Southern hospitality here is more than just a buzzword or a catchphrase. I mean, it's actually a way of life. The elected officials have worked very hard for us to maintain our small-town heritage.
But in the late evening of March 2nd into the early morning of March 3rd, a tornado would tear this community apart.
Life changes in a split second, as they say. The day of the tornado was kind of overcast, and we saw in the news there was bad weather going on up in Kentucky, which is probably 50 miles north of here. But it was a relatively calm day, regular day.
But as everyone settled in for the evening, the forecast turned grim. Strong wind shear combined with instability was now expected to generate thunderstorms with damaging winds as well as the potential for tornadoes. At 11:20 p.m., a tornado watch was issued.
We had fallen asleep. Jerry was watching TV and I was in our bedroom. And my phone went off with the weather alert. And I was watching it on TV and I saw where the tornado was coming through downtown, which is about 15 minutes from here.
Across town, Bill Wallace and his wife Shirley got an urgent call from their son.
He said, "Are you guys in the basement?" And we said, "No." And he said, "Well, you need to get down there. There's a tornado almost on top of you."
Bill and Shirley rushed downstairs with only moments to spare.
We get up and go to the basement. And I remember hearing the siren go off when we were going downstairs.
If you are ever caught in a tornado, one of the safest places to be is below ground in a basement or storm cellar. But if you don't have one of those, get inside a small closet near the center of the home, or even your bathtub. If it gets ugly, you need to be as prepared as possible for what comes.
With sirens blaring across town, Jerry and Karen Warden were preparing for impact. Karen gathered their keys, wallets, and phones and set up refuge in the bedroom closet. Meanwhile, Jerry scrambled to find a flashlight.
And the power went out. And I was screaming, going, "Where are you? Get in here!" And just as he came around the corner, the door slammed, and I thought he slammed it, but it was the wind. And he made it in the closet just in time, and he jumped on me. And just as he jumped on me, I told him, I said, "It's here."
Down in the Wallace's basement, Bill and Shirley could hear that storm approaching.
Everything went dark. And then we heard the noise coming, and then we heard glass breaking up here, and the house was coming apart.
In a matter of moments, the Wardens and the Wallace's lives would be turned upside down. Coming up, tornadoes hit and leave endless destruction.
She was thinking we had a hole in the roof, and then she realized, well, the house is gone.
Then, after one of the costliest storms Mount Juliet has ever seen, this small Tennessee town begins recovery.
You're assisting people who just had their hopes and dreams completely smashed.
But first, a safety tip to help you and your family.
Practice makes perfect, and that especially applies to practicing to be prepared for disasters.
Having multiple evacuation routes planned in advance can help you evade disaster in threatening situations. Practicing these routes with all family members so that the routine can help save precious time in the event of disaster.
Take it from the heroic professionals and do what is necessary to ensure you and your family's well-being. You can't predict disaster, but you can certainly prepare for it. The time is now.
In the early morning hours of March 3rd, just outside of Nashville, Tennessee, the town of Mount Juliet was in the direct path of several tornadoes spawned from a severe storm system. Alerts went out to first responders.
I'd gone to bed, and we have a neighborhood alert system called Nixle. And the police department and the fire department put these Nixle warnings out, and my phone had started to alert quite often to one Nixle right after another.
Right about 1 o'clock, my daughter came in and started pounding on the door, woke my wife and I up, said, "My phone's going off. It says there's a tornado and we need to take cover." And of course, my wife and I, we hopped out of bed real quick and grabbed the kids and the pets and got to a safe place in the house, interior room.
Fortunately, Captain Ross's home was 5 miles from the tornado, so when he knew it had passed, he immediately jumped into action.
I was actually off duty, but when you're short-handed and you're short-staffed and something of this magnitude happens, you go out to serve your community.
To these heroes, being a first responder isn't just a job, it really is a calling. So when their community needs them, they don't hesitate to come to the rescue, they just do.
As the Twisters drilled through town, the Wallaces braced for safety in their basement.
We heard glass breaking up here and the house just coming apart. The walls started coming in. The cabinet came off of the wall downstairs and hit both of us and knocked us to the floor.
The Wallaces' house had crashed on top of them. Bill was able to get himself free, but Shirley, his wife, was trapped under a toppled cabinet.
She couldn't move and maneuver the way I was able to. But I got the flashlight and I flashed it around and I told her, there's no way we're going to get out of here. We're going to have to wait until someone comes.
Meanwhile, Karen Warden and her husband were holed up in their bedroom closet as the tornado focused in on their home.
He put his arm around this leg, and I heard the wind, and I said, "It's here." And then he just said, "Hold on," and the wind, the house just all started shaking, and I was screaming. And then we hit the floor, and that was it.
It was probably just a matter of seconds when everything blew up.
The tornado had picked up the Warden's home, threw it more than 12 feet in the air, and slammed it down, crushing it around them.
As you could tell, the winds and everything started dying down, but the rain was still pretty bad. And she was thinking we had a hole in the roof, and then she realized, well, the house is gone.
For a tornado to do this, it has to have a pretty powerful punch. The Mount Juliet tornado was an EF3, winds up to 165 miles per hour. The Warden's home was shredded, but they were able to get out seemingly uninjured. But on the other side of town, the Wallaces were still trapped in their basement. Hope emerged when a neighbor came running.
I could see where his flashlight was, and I shined mine in that direction, and he said, "I see about where you all are." He said, "I'm going to go get some help, and we're going to come back and get you guys out of there."
By this time, first responders were making their way into the decimated neighborhoods.
Even though it's pitch black, you began to see the severity of the incident that had happened. Houses that you've been in, and now that house is on the ground. 2 schools on the east side of the road were impacted, and 3 neighborhoods completely impacted.
It's hard to describe. You drive up and down Mount Juliet Road every day and everything is in order, and all of a sudden you come around a curve and you've got massive amounts of destruction along the roadway there. You don't have but a very short period of time to process that.
The heroes knew that they needed to get to people trapped in the debris, but getting to them was not going to be easy.
It was very difficult because of the down power lines and the down trees. We weren't able to get our vehicles or our ambulances anywhere close to the patients. And so it was neighbors helping neighbors again, people coming out helping us transport personnel and tools in, and injured personnel out to staging ambulances on the main road.
And when first responders made it to the Wallace's Street, their neighbor was able to lead them to Bill and Shirley, still buried under that rubble.
They got my wife out first and carried her over. The only thing we had on was the clothes that we went to bed in. Some gentleman took off a hoodie sweatshirt, and she put that hoodie sweatshirt on so she could have a little bit of warmth.
Thankfully, the Wallaces and the wardens escaped without major injuries. However, the town of Mount Juliet would not be as fortunate. Coming up, the Wallaces discover how truly lucky they were.
Had we been any other place in that basement, I think it would have crushed us.
And later, the wardens come back to the scene of a nightmare.
I looked up and I told him, I said, we don't have a house. We don't have a roof. There's nothing.
Late on March 2nd, 2020, a ton of supercell thunderstorms started spinning and spawned nearly a dozen tornadoes. One of those tornadoes was an EF3, max winds 165 miles per hour. The path, 60 miles long. Now, this was the 6th costliest tornado outbreak in U.S. history. Once the storms had passed and the immediate rescues were complete, there was a new challenge: recovering and rebuilding their lives.
You see an event like this, you see it firsthand. It's tangible. You're helping people, you're assisting people who just had their hopes and dreams completely smashed.
But despite the devastation, there was a beacon of hope. Thousands of volunteers showed up to lend a helping hand.
Those folks are down from Indiana, and they are cooking for everyone. They're cooking for displaced families, they're cooking for responders, they're cooking for the linemen, they're cooking for the folks from Public Works that are working on getting the debris picked up. Everybody's contributed something to cleaning up the debris. Assessments right now are we are three weeks ahead of where we should be. So that's been good for folks. That's going to get them back. This is 1 week out, and we're already starting to see positive efforts and results of the intent for folks to rebuild. You see, they're already starting with roof repair over here. I mean, that's an answered prayer. Watching folks rebuild from this. We got damage right over here, and he's still building new construction right across the street. So that's good to see.
As Mount Juliet starts the long journey to recovery, folks like Shirley and Bill Wallace are rebuilding and looking to the future.
From the driveway turnaround in this area here, there was steps that went up into a screened-in porch that we had.
Deck landing first.
And then the deck was behind that, so all that was back in this area here. We have been very fortunate. We have had a lot of help, volunteers, so many people wanting to know what can we do to help.
So this is the den and kitchen floor here that fell down into the basement where we were. That's the hole they pulled us out of.
When Tyler yelled, "Is anyone in there?" he was, I guess, somewhere in this area right here. The area that they were able to clear enough that we could get out was rubble. And I think, had we been any other place in that basement, I think it would have crushed us.
We had a guardian angel. I have no doubt that we had someone in there that kept us calm, kept us to where we could think what we needed to do.
We hear the phrase a lot, life is precious. But sometimes take it for granted, and we shouldn't.
No, we shouldn't.
Coming in, you've seen the signs. There's a lot of them everywhere that says, Mount Juliet strong. That's the way we are.
Coming up, a reunion to make us all thankful for what we have.
Yeah, I was amazed that after looking at all of that we didn't get injured.
You guys are something.
But first, this safety tip.
Still need ways to be prepared for a disaster? Just ask a first responder.
Beforehand, having multiple ways to get and stay informed, like having a weather radio, computer, and phone all able to transmit warnings is imperative. Also, an up-to-date home inventory list of all your possessions by room can help in the potential aftermath.
Take the time to learn what you should do to better help your future. You won't regret it. I guarantee it.
In the days following the devastating tornadoes that hit central Tennessee, the city of Mount Juliet began to mobilize and pick up the pieces. Some of the first people to arrive were representatives from our sponsor, Belfor, who began to assist in the rebuilding process. CEO Sheldon Yellen was on scene to lend both help and encouragement to so many, including the wardens.
Karen, tell me what happened that night. How did this come to be?
We didn't know there were going to be storms that night. And my telephone went off with the alarms that there was a tornado spotted downtown. So I went and woke him up, and I said, we've got about 10 minutes before it hits Mount Juliet. He said, go ahead and get in the closet, get the dog. I had the dog. The dog wasn't leaving us.
So I just took off running as fast as I could, which not very fast, and then ran into the closet and kind of jumped on top of her.
And then our house just started shaking, and it shook, and we just held on. And then all of a sudden we went boom, and that's when the house just fell. And then we were just getting wet. And I thought, okay, there's just a hole in the roof somewhere,
yeah,
or part of the roof.
Still pouring pretty.
And then I looked up, and I told him, I said, we don't have a house. We don't have a roof. There's nothing.
It's hard to believe that anybody could have got up and walked out of here.
Yeah, I was amazed that after looking at all of that just that closet, even though it fell down around behind us, that we didn't get injured. I had a bump on my head, and he had a scratch on his foot. He was sitting out here barefoot waiting for me to bring him some shoes, because he didn't have shoes. His shoes fell apart. And a man from Gallatin.
I believe it was Gallatin. Yeah, he was some kind of first responder. I don't know. He was plain clothes, but his truck had the lights on it and stuff. And he just come over and shook my hand, gave me some boots.
Yeah, handed him boots to work in. So he had those boots for, well, he still has them.
Yep.
Yeah, so
Best pair of boots I've ever had.
Here you are. Right. If you had a chance to see that first responder, what would you say to him today?
I probably remember him forever.
You guys are resilient, I'll tell you that, because I'm standing here, I'm looking at this, and to think you were right about in the middle of this pile of debris.
Yes, sir.
That's where we were.
Yeah, basically.
And that you got up to walk out of here.
Yeah.
This is unbelievable. I'm guessing that this proves that all of the material things that we think of and strive for and want and go out and get, really, at the end of the day, don't account for that much when, thank God, the two of you can be standing here together after this.
Yeah, I did feel like we were going to be okay. I don't know what made me say it, but I just felt like, you know, we're going to get through this, and...
You guys are something.
We really are.
It'd be interesting to see what's ahead for you guys, because there's something. There's something ahead.
In one devastating night back in March of 2020, many folks in central Tennessee lost everything but their lives. And what was clear in the days, weeks, and even months after the tornadoes, they had not lost their hope, love, and perseverance. I'm Ginger Zee. Thanks so much for watching.